Hi, I'm Prajjwal, working as a senior software engineer here at GeekyAnts. I'm excited to share my thoughts on Data Connect and how you can use this to build your mobile and web applications. So, yeah, let's jump in. What is this Data Connect, right? So, let's start with that. Firebase Data Connect is a service that you can use to build your mobile and web applications. To be precise, it's like a relational database service that you want to use whenever you want to interact with your databases, specifically the relational databases. Then you can use the service. So it basically allows you to create your data models, your query, what you need, and then it takes that basically and creates the schema you need for your database. It creates the endpoint you need, and then it also generates something called SDK that you can use in application. It can be a web or mobile application where you can use this SDK to basically connect with these endpoints that is just created, and then you can interact basically. So yeah, this is a bit what is the Firebase Data Connect is and what it does. But question would be like, why even we need this? Like, why this Firebase Data Connect is there and why it exists, right? So let's see. And if you take a step back, let's say, and see how a standard application works. So you have some client side, and then you have some servers running, any virtual machines having your code. It can implement any framework, right? And then we have a database also where you want to connect with. You want to do all the operations, want to read and write and stuff, right? So whenever you want to connect with database, you obviously have some sort of relational mapper, right, or document mappers if you're using NoSQL databases, right? So whenever you want to do this, you have to create some models, right? Models basically allows you to define your schema and then allow you to easily interact with the database using those schemas, right? So this is something you have to do. You cannot basically directly connect with database. You have to create those schema, you have to create the relational mappers and everything. And whenever something change, you have to also run migrations, right? You cannot have anything changing up in your application and database stay old. You have to run migration also. So this is how a simpler flow works. You have client, you connect with the your server does all the business logic heavy lifting, and then do read writes with the db. This is how this works. And there's one more other approach that you can use is like using serverless environment, right? Where basically you have clients, the VM that we saw in the last slide, these two server basically now they will be split into you can say small compute units. These units are basically running your same code but calling different endpoints. So you can have like for each endpoint, let's say if you're using REST endpoints here, right? Because like this server can implement either a REST endpoints or a GraphQL interface. Like it's on how you want to have. But if let's say these are the REST endpoints, here these all cloud function will basically each cloud function will basically represent one endpoint. So you can have multiple cloud functions in here, right? And then you have to have same code everywhere, and then you will be connecting with databases. How a serverless normal environment looks like, right? But like if you talk about serverless, we also talk about like it make easier to create a backend and do the things, because when we do serverless, we basically create services when we need, right? And if let's say we talk about relational databases, right, or any database, but like if you talk about Firebase, we have something called Firestore. We don't need to have some servers. You can use their SDK and connect with your database. But what if you want to connect with any SQL based or relational database, right? So there you need some sort of service running, because you cannot really connect. That's the thing. So here this even it's true in this scenario also. If you want to have anything where you want to connect with relational database and you don't want to have any server, let's say we talk about a simple news application where you want to have some reads or writes, right? Directly read writes. There is nothing server need to be done here, need to do anything there. So you if you want to do something like that, there this data connect things comes in. So what you can do is like you can have this data connect service running. You can have your data connect code hosted here, and then it will take care of everything, connecting db, doing all the queries and everything, because you have defined, right, before initializing the service, to define what you have in your application, and then it does all the things and connect there. And it also exposes one GraphQL endpoint where you will be sending all your queries, and it's going to be executed in their environment. It will not be executed on the client side. It will be basically executed on data connect on the services. So you can leverage this data connect here, and they connect directly to server. You can skip this servers part. You don't need to have any server or your own created or any serverless function you want to have to just only to connect to db. You can skip this part and directly can go with data connect route. It's a, like it's also a server, you but the thing is like you are not creating this one, it will be managed. You will be writing only the definition that you need to have, and then it will do all the magic behind the scene. So now it's basically like where the data connects comes in. We saw that. Now thing is like how it works, that's also a thing. So data connect basically works with two parts, you can say. It's basically a combination of two things. Data connect is not a standalone stuff. It basically a service to use another service, you can say. So cloud sql is basically a managed service from google cloud, where you can run any flavor of relational database. So you will have on this cloud server instance running, cloud sql server instance running, and then you'll have data connect instance running. So these two are kind of required to have your data connecting running, because we talk about relational database, we need to have somewhere that one, right? So this cloud sql is the place for that. And when we talk about data connect, it's like in the firebase environment. Now the cloud sql thing is like if you create this its instance, it's fine, it's there, it's stay and it works, right? You don't have to do anything extra there. Yeah, you can create users, do the policy stuff, that's there. But like if you create an instance, it's fine, it's there, right? But when you talk about data connect, it required some things. So let's see that next. So data connect itself is a service that we talk about. It's run in the firebase environment. But when we wanna configure it, we're gonna write it code in the client side, right? In the client side, we have something called data connect schema thing. Basically you have a folder. Whenever you do firebase init, you select a data connect, it just creates one folder. Like if you do any function, any serverless environment, it just create a place where you can have all of your data connect code. So basically all the data connect code will have two things. One is called the app model, or you can call it schemas. And if I do a bit more simply go with more simplified terms, it's basically like you will be defining your tables, right? All the tables, all the columns, whatever you want to have, you can define in this app schema model part, right? And then other hand, we'll have some sort of way that you'll be able to query your tables. You want to manipulate data in your tables. To do that, you need query and mutation, and this is basically collectively called connectors. So you'll be writing your connectors and app models, and these two will combinedly gonna have your data connect thing running. So now let's see how it looks in the code, actually how you'll be doing this stuff. So this is a simple web application, I would say. And then it's basically a view application, but it can be any web application. There's no need to have any big or small, there's no have any problem there basically. So what you'll do is like obviously you will run the firebase init. It will ask you what project you want to use, and you will do some configuration, and then you'll select data connect, right? Once you do that, after doing this, you will have that this data connect folder getting created. This will be the place where you will be writing all your data connect configurations, right? With configuration I mean like first of all will be this data connect file where we'll be defining where you want to host this, because obviously it need to be near to the user so that we have less latency there. And then you'll be defining where your schema will be. It will be defining what the connectors will be, because like you can have multiple connectors per service, but you can have only one schema per service. So that's the thing. So you can define one schema, but you can define multiple connectors, because you can have application, we have two services, let's say a writer and the user. So you can create two different connector to handle those cases, right? Once you do this, then you'll see at two other places something called schema. We'll be defining all the tables and stuff. So here I have like this is code when you create this firebase init, it just comes with this course. I'll just gonna walk you through that quickly. So this is basically a table that you will be defining using the GraphQL type system. So you'll be defining a type of movie, and you will be adding a decorator that's called table, that basically explain to data connect this is gonna be a table, and what we need to have, this will be UID with default type and stuff. So you can do this. And then if it's a relational database, you will have obviously relations, right, in the tables. So you can have, let's say, movie metadata table where you'll have relationship with movie, because each movie can have some metadata. You can create using this. You'll have movie, and then you can refer to this type, and it will become a one-to-one. If you want a one-to-many in some scenario, you can have this like a how graphical type work. You can have an array saying that movie cannot be null. Basically there will be at least one movie in this type. So you can define this one-to-many relationship also. Once you do define your schema, now next thing would be like you'll be defining how you want to read this data, right? So there this data connector thing comes up. You'll be defining your queries in this file. Here let's say there's a query called let's list movies, and then there's something called this, you see now, auth. So this is something comes up as we saw, like this is something Firebase, and Firebase have this auth stuff. You can have the auth implemented, and once you do that, it make easier to have your backend getting secure, because you can use their uh, auth services, and then you can configure how your endpoint should be used. So let's say if I'm talking about level public, now if you see here will be option with no access, public, user and user email verified. These things come up from Firebase whenever you create any user, and you can define these tokens. So if you define any user need to be verified or stuff, you can handle that. Now we are making it public, so it will be accessible publicly. And then you will be defining some mutations are basically how you want to mutate or manipulate your data, right? So you can define a mutation or create movie. As I mentioned, like auth basically help you to control your endpoint. So you'll be defining like, okay, user with the email verified can only be accessed this endpoint. This is how you control this stuff, right? Once you have various mutation written, you need to define the connectors. So connectors are basically helps you to generate your SDKs and also a code that will use. So let's say we have connector of ID default. You will generate an SDK with the default connector name with some package and some directory, right? Basically thing is like whenever you use data connect, you will use a command called Firebase Data Connect generate. Even you can use hyphen watch, basically that helps you to, when you want to work in the application, interactively generate all the code, right? So that you can use everything on runtime. You don't have to generate always. But if you generate this thing, it will generate one package parallel to your node modules that will works as a, obviously, like you do with node modules, you import something, right? So whenever you use this data connector, you define this data connector, run this generate part, it will generate a types of SDK for you. And then in your application, let's say if I go to app view, we have some JavaScript code written. It can be React component also, where you write any JavaScript or TypeScript code. You will be able to basically use the default connector that we have just generated using the command, and access all the queries you written as a type from here, as a references from here, that you can define. So you can see when you hover this like it returns a list movie data, right? You can, if you have TypeScript, it makes much more better, because where if you run any lint and stuff, it knows like what it need to have in parameter. Let's say someone changes, okay, now whenever you're creating build, it's gonna fail. So it will make much more sense, and then add much more security when you creating an application, and also clean, and you will have no corruption in data. Like what's gonna happen when you change anything. So this is helps with the, this is basically what types of SDK helps us with. So once you define these refs, right, and then there is something called this Firebase Data Connect. So this comes up from the Firebase itself. So whenever you initialize any project, you have to do this npm init, and then you have to install the Firebase. Once you do that, you have to do some configuration also. So you can do here in this Firebase JS kind of a thing, any place as per your framework how you can do. Once you do this, you configure your data connect using data connect, and then also you basically also if you're using local development environment, even you can connect emulator, then it make much more easier to interact with, because it runs local PostgreSQL that you can use to interact with your DB and make changes as per your requirement. So it just make much more sense to have this way, right? So once you do this all the connection and stuff, and then once you have this thing running, you can basically use data connect and use methods from here. We have multiple utility functions from method that you can use, like get data context, query ref, or like what there are like multiple options that you can use. Like if you want to subscribe to any query and stuff, you can do from here. So what happens is like when you use this execute query, you pass your all the references, can be any query or mutation that you want. Once you do this, it will gonna run on either local environment in the emulator that we are running here, or we'll gonna basically hit to our server when we're in the production or any environment, right? So it does that, get the data, and yeah, you're done. You're too good to go. If I show you this web page running here, like we have some data here, right, coming up from directly from the DB. Now when we are saying like it comes from DB, so how it came there, right, we need to have. So that's a good part about this data connect, like it gives you some more functionality here. So it's something there is something called this connector, this Firebase extension that we will be using, data connect extension will be using in the local environment with the emulator. So whenever you write this data connector connect code, right, when you write this schema, it have this option of adding data, right? So this add data is something that you will use. When you click it, it will create one file that you can use and run locally. It will insert data in the environment. So if I show you in the data connect execution, I've run commands multiple times. So this is basically I run like first time and you will see like this will be adding this data, right? If I add again this, I need to have new id, else it will just crash like I did this one. So it just take care of everything. And then if you want to read the data when you are testing, you can basically click here and click on run local. It will gonna basically read you data from the db also. So this is basically how you can use this extension to also uh, work with your local changes you are making, right? So this is how it works in the code. And then yeah, once you're done with all the changes, you can use Firebase deploy and then select your data connect code, and it will do all the heavy lifting of identifying the what are the changes is. And also like when we're using data connect using the relational databases, whenever you make any change, any add new column or do something, you have to run migration to keep the database schema up to date. So data connect also solves that. So whenever you want to run the Firebase deploy thing, it'll gonna identify okay what change have been done, and accordingly it will basically show you if you want to add the data, drop the database or table, sorry. And then whatever change you want to make in the schema and the table in the database, it will ask you, and once you do the confirmation on that, it will gonna do all the operation on the db also. So this is how basically a data connect thing works. Now get back to our presentation back. So now what are the benefits here, like, so as we saw, like the data integration was very simplified. You don't have to do much of the configuration there. You just initialize it, you have the data connect folder, then you start writing your code, basically all the tables columns you need. Once you are done, you can just basically deploy and start integrating. Also it makes easier data management, because as I mentioned, whenever you create whenever you want to deploy this one, it automatically identifies what changed, right? So based on that, it prompt you to select what you want to do with the data that has been changed. You want to delete any table, or add new columns or do something there, it asks you at the time of when you deploy. So just makes simpler. Security is there because I showed you those uh, auth decorator stuff. So you can use the existing Firebase authentication and implement those security policies. Scalability, reliability is there because like it's a serverless environment. You don't have to do anything. It's like a backend as a service thing. Everything is managed, scales automatically. So it works and it's good. Multi-platform support is there because the code we generated data connect thing, it works for all the platform. In the connector you can define what the type you want and it works. Now we have seen benefits and everything. There will be obviously some problem or the shortcomings we should be aware of when we using this data connect. So that's basically like one thing is when we use cloud sql, like as mentioned, Firebase data connect works with the cloud sql only. That's one thing. And also like it works with postgres as of now only. So it's something like you have to use postgres only. So that's one drawback here. It's like a limited data support as of now. It's still in the not in the general availability, so whenever it comes up it might support more, but for now it's only pgsql. And then vendor lock-in is there because if you see, it's only like Firebase and GCP. It's like their proprietary code and stuff. You cannot move away from this. So once you do this, you will be locked in sort inside their infrastructure. You have to use these ones only. Though yeah, you have schema and stuff. You can move away to another one. That's easier, but still you have to write then all the endpoint stuff, right? And the cost will be there because you'll be running two services. One will be the Firebase Data Connect, and then will be a GCP service running. So both will incur the cost. So that's something there. Learning curve is something like if something you are new to GraphQL, you have to learn a bit that you have to understand the type system. And also if you want to integrate it, just need to be have bit idea how you will integrate those GraphQL endpoint, because generally when you have GraphQL things, you have to configure lots of GraphQL stuff, but here you don't have to, it just works. So there are also like some Firebase specific things that you can do like auth, and there are some other stuff, all the decorators we have. So you have to bit understand about how this thing works before using this. So yeah, this was all data connect. I hope this was helpful. And yeah, this all, thank you. See you next time.